Hello, welcome to the show. Well, this week we're going to bring you a very special show as I make an announcement about my future with Realty Talk, and it gives Bushy and I time to reflect on the show's history, what we've learnt, how everything continues to change but at the same time remains exactly the same. I trust you enjoy this show, which will be my last, but we'll give you more details about what's ahead for Realty Talk a little bit later in the show, because this certainly is not the end. Before we start, I want to thank our supporters and content partners, realty.com.au, BMT Tax Depreciation, Know How Property Finance, and Apiro Marketing. Don't forget, you'll find us on all podcast players as The Property Hub, also on the Southern Cross Australia Network, Hot Copper, and all social media platforms.
Property deductions can save you thousands of dollars each year. To make sure you maximise deductions, you need to work with the most experienced quantity surveyor in the country. BMT Tax Depreciation is the leading specialist in the industry. They've completed over 700,000 tax deduction schedules for residential investment and commercial properties Australia-wide. BMT guarantee to find double your fee in the first full financial year deductions. Call BMT on 1300 728 726 today for an obligation-free quote.
Unlock bonus content now as a premium subscriber.
Well, as Kevin mentioned in the intro, we're doing something a little bit different today. So I'm all ears and the curiosity's peaking, Kevin. So let's hear what's it all about.
Well, yeah, it's a bit different, isn't it, Bushy? I mean, you and I together, we've been threatening to do this for some time. We tried a couple back in the old days when I used to interview you, but this is not going to be your typical interview topic. And the reason for that is that I'm going to take a bit of a rest. You know, like I'm at the stage now. I just want to ease back a little bit, a number of reasons that we'll talk about during this interview. But I just really wanted to come on and just say, hey, Realty Talk's going to be around. It's been around for a long time. It's going to continue. Property Hub has been a great exercise between you and I, and a few of our very good friends who've supported us. And, that vision is going to continue. So, while it might change, and you probably noticed that I've taken a bit of a backseat anyway, and Bushy's been more on the driving seat than me, and there's a good reason for that. So, and it's not health related, I can say. It's just the fact I want to go and do a bit more fishing, Bushy.
Fishing all sorts of ponds, I think, too, Kevin.
Yeah, right.
I think I probably, and we'll come back to it towards the end of our chat, but I know you're doing some very interesting space work in the realty space.
Oh, yeah.
Other disruptive, almost transformational change that is potentially going to affect everyone in the industry. So
that's brought about because there has been a number of changes in the industry too, which we will get into. Because the way we used to ride horses, but we don't anymore. We drive motor cars, and I think things change, and you have to adapt as well. But it also is going to give me an opportunity to do a bit more painting, Bushy, as well. So,
mate, love it.
Yeah,
some masterpieces in the making there, Kevin. Mate, let's take a bit of a walk down memory lane then for a second, and I'd love for you to just share, what was your original vision for the show back in the early days, and what, if anything's changed in relation to that over time?
Bushy, I started in real estate in 1988, so I go way back, and I can tell you that when I first started in real estate, there was no such thing as like computers were only just coming in. So all of our contracts were done manually. We used to use carbon paper between them. You'd write out one copy, and this wonderful thing called carbon paper would give you another copy at the back. And everything had to be done. Like if I sold a house and the, one of the parties was down like 30, 40, 50, 60 kilometres away, I'd have to drive to get their signature. And there was no such thing as, you could fax, but really it was really difficult to do that. So we were driving a lot. So I think things have changed a lot. I think when I got into real estate, I loved it immediately. I came out of media. I was in radio before that, and then I went into real estate. It really fascinated me. I love real estate because it's real estate, but it's also the opportunity to work with people. So I was... an old buddy of mine ran a radio station called 4BC in Brisbane, which is it's still going here, but he's no longer in charge of it. And I approached him one day and said, hey, and because it's a talk station, I said, have you ever thought of doing a real estate show? He said, oh, actually, yeah, we have. We'd sort of dabble with it. What do you got in mind? And I pitched him on doing a show that would talk to people about buying and selling real estate, but also do valuations. So we were one of the first to do live valuations, and people would ring up and say, you know, I've got a property and such, what's it worth? And we had a reasonably good database in those days. And we were able to do desktop valuations, which is now fairly common. But so we opened that up, and we got a lot right. We got a lot wrong, I've got to say. But we had lots of disclaimers over it as well. So that show went for 10 years and it was very good. It started off as a 2-hour show, then they cut it back to an hour, then they cut it off into 2 1-hour shows, and it was moved around from Saturday to Sunday. But it always had a great audience and always rated extremely well. So from that, I remember thinking one day, I need to build my own audience because, you know, this is a great audience for 4BC. They were fully on board with it. So I actually did this wonderful thing called podcasting. And I would record the show and get it down onto a DVD, then take it away, and I'd podcast that show. I'd send it out, cut the ads out, and did a podcast, and that started it. And then I thought, no, hang on, maybe I can do this a little bit better. So I was doing the 4BC show while I was still selling real estate. And I would finish the show, I'd race out and do my open homes on the weekend. And I just like I was a lot younger then. Maybe that's why I'm suffering so much nowadays, because, you know, that was really a big job. I had a lovely wife, wonderful family who supported me all the way through that. So then I was doing the 4BC show, I was doing my own podcast, and I had my career in real estate. And that, I remember going to a conference that I think it was the professionals had on the Sunshine Coast, and I was listening to someone speak, and I thought, all these people have come together to spend a couple of days out of their business to get educated and to get trained. There's got to be a better way. Maybe I can, and bearing in mind, this was back in 2012, I think.
Yeah.
12 odd years ago, and you think back of what's happened in that time, there's been a lot happen. And I thought there must be a better way to communicate this. Maybe I can use the podcasting as an idea. So I spun up another show called RE Uncut. And that was Real Estate Uncut, aimed straight at professionals, at real estate agents. I was doing a show every day. So I was producing 5 shows in a block with one person, then I'd break it down and send out one each day. That went really well. It's still around, by the way. It's taking a bit of a hiatus too, but it's going to change. I'll tell you why in just a moment. Yeah. But you know, the show then morphed into something that was I was on 2UE in Sydney. Then we did it as a national syndication and went round the country, and we were on, I think, around about 40 radio stations around Australia. So, you know, it was a really busy time, but I think the thing out of all of this, what was your original question about the early days? The thing about all of this is that, you know, it brought together my 2 loves, which was real estate and communication. And, you know, I still get a buzz as I am now, you know, having this chat with you about my 2 passions in life, apart from my family, is real estate and communication. I just love it. And, so that's really where it happened. And we built a wonderful base, a very loyal base of people that you and I now talk to through Property Hub. And I'm very proud of the way that's gone. It's what I've called over the years a very sticky audience, because they've got a great interest in, you've only got to go to a barbecue, Bushy. Yeah. They tell someone you're in real estate, oh, how much did that house down the road sell for? Or what's happening with property prices? It's like a passion for us. And that's what I love so much about it. So anyway, that's a long-winded answer to your question.
All right, it's a great answer, because it's sort of been crunching the numbers. We're up over 600 shows since you kicked off just in the real estate talk, realty talk space. Let alone the real estate uncut, which.
It's interesting, Bushy. Can I just cut in on you there? I know that 600 number is accurate. It's 620 or something like that. But I can't remember when, but there was a stage when I stopped the numbering and I restarted it. So I reckon it's up around 700. And when you look at those early days, in the shows, I was doing 3 and 4 interviews at a show, not 2 as we do now. So, you multiply that by even an average of 3, you're looking at about 2,000 interviews that we've done over that time. And can I also tell you, this says a lot about this industry, because I have never, ever had to pay for an interview yet. Never. People give so freely of their time. It's only a matter of ringing them. As you know, you ring them up and say, hey, listen, can I just get a comment from, yeah, sure. Well, so they'll always accommodate you. And it's beautiful. It really is fantastic.
It's a great thing, because I don't think there's a topic or a person or a state or an area. There's no rock that hasn't been turned over on the show.
Yeah.
Kevin. And what I've loved about it, I was one of the first generation listeners and sort of grew up with the show in relation to educating myself on what was happening and why. And it was just so instructive and so conversational, but not biased either. That's I think the thing that has made it so sticky is that it's a very even-keeled, balanced, open and transparent view of what's going on. It's not, you're not trying to sell anyone anything. You're just sharing good information from good quality people. It's a bit of a rarity in the space, mate.
Can I tell you a little secret, Bushy? One of the reasons it is what it is because I'm relatively dumb. And I really, it's the only dumb question is the one you don't ask, because even if you think someone knows the answer, there's every good reason why you would ask the question. So I've just really honed my skill around asking questions and not trying to display my knowledge, because a lot of people, when they do an interview, they try to tell you how much they know. And even though Peter Campen's a great mate of mine, and Peter once said to me, I'm amazed, Kevin, when I listen to your interviews on 4BC, you ask a question, I know damn well you know the answer to it, but you're asking the question because you want everyone else to know what the answer is rather than hearing it from you. And that's the truth too. Like when I talk to you, Bushy, it's like you become the expert. I'm not the expert. I'm just the interviewer. I'm the dumb person asking the questions. You're the person I want to have on, and you've got the knowledge, so I want to get it out of your skull. And I think you've got to put away the ego to become a good interviewer and acknowledge the fact the person you're talking to knows a lot more than you do. So let's get that out of it. And I think that therein lies the value of really good interviewing and really good content.
And that's a skill I'm still trying to learn, as you well know.
Oh, but you're really good at it. Right? And we joked this morning when we were talking about this interview, and we talked about the knowledge that you've got and how you can do that so well in your introductions. And you and I have talked about how long your introductions are, and bless you, they're a commentary on their own. But that's because you've got so much damn knowledge. You're so good at what you do. So continue it, mate. Don't let anyone discourage you, all right?
No, it's as always. As I mentor on a friend, Kevin, I couldn't be humbled and more thankful for the opportunity I've had to one to listen and learn from you, and 2 to actively work with you. That was it's been nearly 4 years now that I've had the absolute pleasure of spending time with you, and to be the grasshopper learning from the master. It's been
that's enough. That's enough of that stuff, mate.
But mate, I would like to
Bushy, when I was researching for this chat, and you prompted me on this, you gave me some notes, so thank you for that. Our first show was the recorded show was 2012, and just to give you an idea, the people we had on that show will tell you a lot about how this industry hasn't changed all that much in terms of the topics that we talk about. I spoke to Rachel Barnes, who was talking about buying property in the USA and how different it is. Monique Wakeland, who was explaining about capital growth. What's capital growth? Terry Ryder, bless him, the pros and cons of buying in mining towns. Remember those great conversations about that? And Margaret Lomas, bless her. Margaret wrote so many books. She's always been a great supporter of this show and our show and me, and I thank her for that. And she she actually opened our eyes about cash flow and, positive cash flow using it as a strategy. It's not a strategy. It's not a strategy. It's an outcome. And, you know, she's opened her eyes on many, many things. But that was our first show. So it just showed you how things really haven't changed.
Yeah, and that exactly right. The fundamental principles underpinning everything we do are pretty much unmoved. It's just the emperor in new clothes, really.
Yeah.
And everyone likes to think it's different. Look, given that number of shows that you've and the people that you've interviewed over the years, what have been some of your most enjoyable and memorable chats, Kevin?
It's going to be hard for me to answer that question for you, Bushy, because there have been so many, and I guess you might have expected me to say that. But can I just tell you, going back on something I just mentioned, and that was, there's no silly question, because as you know, I don't script my interviews. I'll start with a topic, and I'll start with a question. And I try and work off what people say. Like you'll make a comment. And let's dig into that. Now, if I didn't have that mindset, I probably wouldn't go deeper into some of the topics. You know, I'd say, I'm going to ask you about this and this and this and this, and that would frame the interview. But some of the best interviews I've done are ones that I haven't even planned to do, you know. And the reason for that is things like intergenerational living, urban planning. I know nothing about urban planning.
Yeah.
So how could I ever script to do a good interview on urban planning without asking a dumb question like, what is urban planning? You know, what does it mean? How does it work? So they're the best kind of questions, and that will give you the best kind of interview. So I think that's probably big. And the other interesting aspect too is that I've identified there's really only two types of buyers, and they're so different. So you've got to be prepared to cater for both sides. And you've got the investor type who's looking at it from a business point of view, and then you've got the emotional buyer who's buying a home for their family. Two totally different audiences looking for totally different advice. And so that means that you've got to, you know, really frame your thinking about, okay, who's going to be the audience for this conversation? What kind of questions do I have to ask? If it's an investor, I'll ask about things like cash flow and finance and structures and all that kind of stuff. But people who buy a home, they don't care about that, because, you know, that all they care about is it going to be in the right area for the schools? Is it going to be, is it safe for the family to be there? I know a lot of these elements help in investment too, but there is a different slant to it, if that makes sense.
Well, 100%. One's driven from the heart and emotion. The other one's driven from the brain and the rational thinking of the head. So they are very different. One's spreadsheet and one's the other. But if you look back on all of that work that you've done and all the people you've talked to and all the subjects you've covered, what have been your sort of top takeaways and learnings from the show, Kevin?
Yeah, well, once again, that's two-folded. So let me answer it in this way. For an investor, very much there's no quick fix. You know, like you can't beat solid research, and that's why I think we've seen a lot more investment interest in real estate, and you know, the rise of buyers agents is a classic example. You know, where investors are looking for a need to get really good professional advice, and that can only come through good due diligence. So people are now willing to pay for that, which is effectively what's happening. Interesting, we had a chat to someone in America early this morning, and we were talking about the differences there as to what's happening. As you may or may not be aware, I know you're aware, you and I talked about it, but the commission structures of how they've changed, like it's about 6% commission to sell a house in America compared to 2 to 2.5% in Australia. But in America, you've got that 6% goes to fund the selling agent and the buying agent. And now they've split that. So the buying agent is responsible for getting their own commission. So that's going to drive the commission for a seller down, but it will also mean that the buyer's agent need to become more skilled. I'm probably right off topic here, but it's an important element as to what's happening in the market right now. So professionals are prepared to pay for that kind of advice, and that's what they're doing. It's estimated now there are between 4,000 and 5,000 buyers agents in Australia right now. Not all active, but that's the number that's coming through, and they're growing incredibly. So for all of those guys to get a living, they've got to become really, really good at what they do. So that's from the investor side. But the thing I've learned about people who are buying their own home is that there are some great lessons they've got to learn about where they get their advice from. And, you know, they approach these things emotionally. And if you're looking at a seller's hardest job is to divorce themselves from the property. So, because every seller wants more than their house is worth, and every buyer wants to pay less than what it's worth, or should I just say they don't want to overpay? So that leaves like an element of compressed air between the two. So that hasn't changed. You know, that has not changed. So private sellers need to divorce themselves from the home, understanding when it goes on the market, it's no longer their home. It's just a commodity they need to sell. So they've got to remove the emotion out of it, take out all the personal effects, and that, you know, hence the rise of things like preparing the home for sale, you know, by getting in people to decorate it. I think also the other thing that I've learned is that the industry's changed in as much as data has become very, very important, Bushy. And I remember when I started in real estate in 1988, we used to work off a thing called RP data, which is still around. It's now called Logic. And they were the gatekeepers to the info. They had it all. They had the whole lot. It was locked up. You couldn't get to it. You had to be a subscriber to do it, and you pay a lot of money. So we'd do things like property searches, and then we'd have to go to CoreLogic and get the all the RP data reports and so on and so forth. Then it opened up. Then this wonderful thing called the internet came on, and it was all made public. And real estate agents were no longer the gatekeepers of that information. That information is available to everyone now, so freely. So real estate agents had to change how they work. They no longer were the gatekeepers of the information. They had to help interpret the information. And that's brought about a whole change in how we transact, how we relate to real estate agents, and how agents relate to consumers. So there's some of the changes that I've noticed, and they've been quite substantial changes too, even though we think, the way we buy and sell houses hasn't changed much. It's changed a huge amount, and stand by, because it's going to continue to change.
We'll talk a little bit about some of the.
I'm probably jumping ahead. Maybe we should take a break too and pay a few bills. Do you think? What do you reckon?
Let's do that.
Take a break. All right. Thanks, Butch. You do the outro. Go on.
Okay. Well, when we come back, we've talked about what's changed. We're going to talk about what's actually stayed the same and some of the fundamentals. So stay with us.
At Know How Property, we're more than just the best residential and commercial loan arranger. We craft a plan for your lifestyle and future with our 3-stage strategy. We start with your lifestyle strategy. Whether it's finding your dream home in the perfect location or adding to your residential or commercial portfolio, we listen to what you want and need to do. Next, we create a financial strategy. We dive deep to uncover what you can do, ensuring your finances are set up for success. Finally, we implement our validation strategy. We become your John West of property, because it's the property we reject that makes sure you get the best. Know How Property. Smart, tailored strategies for your life and investments. Subscribe now to Realty Talk. It's out every week.
All right, welcome back to a great chat we're having with the pioneer and the trusted voice of property over probably 700 plus shows and probably 700 plus people over that time. We've talked before the break about what's changed in the world of property, and there's been a lot of that. But there's also a lot that's probably stayed the same, Kevin. So can you share some of that with us?
Yeah, mate, I have. I will, sorry. Getting started is the hardest thing. And let's look at investors now as a point in question. I mean, so much talk about negative gearing and greedy landlords and so on, but the majority of people only ever buy one investment property, and most people only ever buy one property their whole life, one or two that their principal place of residence. So people are not buying houses like you would go and buy groceries or go and buy a motor car. They very rarely buy them. So getting started is the hardest part. It's the biggest investment most people will make, and it's probably the most scary for them. But the interesting thing is, once you get past 2 and 3 properties, it doesn't become easier, you just become smarter. And I think, therefore, you sort of learn so much as you're going. Like, you listen to so many podcasts and take so much advice, but at the end of the day, you've got to take responsibility for your own actions. So, have the courage to do that. And the people, the great investors I talk to, and you do too, Bushy, they're courageous. They back themselves, and and it's all based on really good knowledge. So that has not changed. The other thing too, FOMO, fear of missing out, it's probably one of the biggest stages. And, a lot of people play on that, that fear of missing out. Don't miss out on this opportunity, and you see it all the time. It's bait. And anyone who has to do that, they're probably not representing a really good product. I mean, a good product will sell itself. So you don't have to work on the fear of missing out. I think there was a trend with advertising, particularly in newspapers, where, foreclosures, as an example, people would flock to that, not realizing that a foreclosed property is probably going to sell for more than what you'd buy, and because there's so many people trying to get at it, and it just creates demand. So just be very careful of that. I touched on another point too earlier, Bushy, and that was the listening to the wrong people. As a real estate agent, I can tell you, one of the things that I used to dread was I would go out with a young buyer or a young couple, and they'd find the house that they really love, and then they'd say, I want to bring mum and dad back to show them. Yeah, of course, that's their right. And I think it's good to get other advice. But who do you get it from? Like, I can tell you that parents, by and large, and I'm a parent, I've done the same thing. You try to protect your kids. So therefore, they'll try and find reasons for you not to buy it, not for you to buy it, not to support you. Now, I know that there are some parents who don't fall into that category. By and large, it underscores that piece of advice is that you've got to be very careful who you take advice from. One of the first interviews that we ever did, and I think we've done it probably, maybe 40 or 50 times in the life of the shows, is about scams. Scams are always there. There's just, they become so creative of how they're going to scam you and rip you off. And the old adage still holds true. If it looks too good to be true, it probably is. Just be very, very careful of scams. Yeah. I was gonna make another crude comment, but I won't. About what is it? If it looks like it, tastes like it. You know the one I'm talking about. Yeah. Anyway,
it comes out of the wrong end of the dog. Yeah, I know.
That's it. Yes, I did. It probably is. Yes. You should just be very careful. Yeah. The other one too is that not every investment is a good investment. I will say this: every house will sell. Every house in Australia sells. It just all comes down to the price. Even I employed a young salesman once who specialised in getting houses on railway lines, getting houses on busy streets. And I said to him, mate, why are you doing this? He said, let me tell you, every house sells. It all comes down to the price. Get the price right, I'll find the buyer. And he is so right. Like, every house does sell. But, the point I want to make there is that if you're after a good investment, you really have to do your research. You've got to research it, and you can be. Is that good advice, Bushy? I don't know. That's what I've lived by anyway.
Yeah, absolutely spot on there, Kevin. We talked a fair bit about the future, but anyone in property is always interested in what's going to happen tomorrow. Let's get your views then on where you think the future of property is going to go, and that's it. Then we'll talk about where realty is going to fit into that.
I think that's probably, that's such an open-ended question. Every time I ask that, you sort of see the fear in people's eyes rising. No one really knows, to be honest, Bushy. But where do I see it going? I think if you'd asked me that question 2 years ago, I could never have predicted what's happened in the last couple of years. Like, hey, one day you'll pick the newspaper up and the market's crashing. The next day you'll pick it up it might even be in the same newspaper or left and right page, but one page is crashing, next page it's booming. And the thing about that is that there is no one market. Like every market's different. The Sydney market moves differently from the Melbourne market. The Sydney suburbs move differently from each other. So there is no one market. So making a prediction is really, really hard. I think you've got to, once again, it comes down to just doing your research, knowing, the type of property you want to buy, research it, and then, and then get on with it. Well, I think the other thing too that's influenced the market greatly is the way we live, the size of our families, our demands. Like I remember when, the first house that Carol and I purchased was in Toowoomba, and we built it ourselves. It was not ourselves. We had someone build it for us, but it was a 3-bedroom brick home, very basic tiled roof and so on, single level. And that's perfect for us at the time because we had a growing family. We had 2 kids, very, very young, and it suited us, but we outgrew it. So then we would go and buy a bigger house. And I look now at what's happened in the transition. And I think over the years, our principal place of residence has probably changed about 12 times because we've moved it quite a lot. And each one of those houses has a unique characteristic and it has a need for us at that particular time. But it's all based around your life and your lifestyle. And I look at this now, and I'm speaking to you from, a fabulous development that I've spoken to you about. It's an over 55s, but, we're all a great bunch of people, no kids here. We all get on very well together. Everyone loves to drink and, we all go bike riding. So right now, my lifestyle is just absolutely fabulous, which has prompted me to make the decision I've made about trying to step back. So, the way we've changed and even thinking about young people now being prepared to buy an investment property and then rent in an area where they want to live, which is in a city where they couldn't afford to buy it because they want to be close to the coffee shop. So, the way we live is changing all the time. And even COVID was a big shock for us because we got to learn how we can work from home and work remotely. And that propelled things like, working from home and home office and so on. So it is less about the size of the property. It's all about getting more density and living closer together. So I think that's how that's changed. Average household size are changing. And you shared a stat with me that I'm going to read you because it's not my stat. I'll give you credit for it. That the average household size has shrunk from 4.5 in 1911 to 2.7 now. I mean, that tells you a lot about how things have changed and how we've got to build differently and cater for people differently. So, that's one of the ways that things have changed. And even high-rise, things like, high-rise units and so on. But I guess one thing that hasn't changed is the fact that we all need a roof over our head, no matter whether that's a unit or a house. We all need, and that's always been my thinking about why real estate is a great investment, because it caters to one of our greatest needs, and that is to be secure in our own home and have a roof over our head and be nice and warm. So, that hasn't changed, Bushy. It's just how we structure it has changed. That's the difference.
100%. And I think that whenever there's a need and there's a problem to solve when it comes to where we live, there's an opportunity for people in property, whether that be buying a home, investing in property, selling property, you buyer's agent, a property manager. As long as there's change, then there's opportunity. You and I have heard the headlines year after year, day after day about how the sky's going to fall in when it comes to property. There hasn't been a year that's passed where I haven't heard the doom and gloomers talk about it. And yet, what happens? It just continues to grow and evolve. And that's the most exciting thing about property, I think, is the fact that, it's a tangible asset. It's something that we can all, because our lifestyles are changing, that our housing needs are changing. It's that change that is the opportunity. So rather than be threatened by that change, embrace it as the opportunity that it truly is moving forward. But in sort of speaking on that, Kevin, I know that, a big part of what you've been doing behind the scenes now for quite some time with Realty is really challenging and disrupting the space in the way we actually look, find, secure, negotiate, and buy property. Are you able to sort of reveal a little bit of what you're doing to excite us around where that's heading?
Yeah, I'd love to. In fact, we've just concluded a webinar about that. So, I'm more than happy to talk about that. I think, Bushy, if I could just wind the clock back about 4 years. 4 years ago, I actually sold my business. I sold it into Realty Media Group. There's a great mate of mine now who's the chairman of our company. He's the CEO of that company, Troy Rushton, who I know you know. That was probably one of the most satisfying and successful things I've ever done in my entire life, was selling it in and then starting to work in this group, which it sort of broadened my horizons greatly, because I was very involved in real estate, as in real estate, and media, as in, what I was doing, bringing the two together. But Realty Media Group, and it's the name doesn't really say what it is. It's a tech company. It's not a media group as such. But we have developed some tech, and I'm a shareholder in that company. Just disclosing that. I'm a shareholder in that company, and we've developed some tech around one of the newer things that have happened in the Australian market. That's around buyer's agents. And I mentioned that earlier because selling my business to Troy and his team gave me the opportunity to start to step back a little bit and realize how much I enjoyed doing the shows and communicating with people and learning and building a network that I've now been able to get some leverage of because of the number of people I know. But also it gave me an opportunity to, I don't know if you know this, Bushy, but we looked around for some time to try and pull me out of the shows so I could concentrate more on the business itself. And, that's why we engage with you. And that has been so rewarding for me to watch someone like you come through, develop your own style, and you are so knowledgeable what you do. We couldn't have had a better person to do it for us. That's why I've been delighted that you've taken over the stewardship of the show. And, we're going to see that morph and continue to change as you put your stamp on it. And I'm looking forward to watching that grow. But that's off topic. Let me tell you about Realty. We've invented a marketplace in recognition of the fact that the growth of buyers agents has been driven off the fact that buyers really haven't had much representation in Australia. Yep. The thought of a real estate agent representing both a seller and a buyer at the same time it just doesn't make sense. Because a real estate agent gets their commission from the seller. So they effectively work for the seller. They don't work for the buyer. So by and large, buyers have been pretty well unprotected. Not saying that anyone's ripped them off, but they probably haven't had the best advice that they could have had. So hence the rise of buyer agents. Now, buyer agents, because the commissions are so low in Australia, need to get rewarded for that. And I think buyers are understanding that and they're prepared to pay for them, hence the rise of buyer agents. So what that has caused is a major disruption in the market. And let me tell you about that. A lot of people don't realise what's happening. And that is that buyer's agents will get a buyer, then they need to find the stock for that buyer. So the way they've been doing that is by having to trawl through thousands and thousands of listings on realestate.com.au and Domain primarily. And they're two platforms that have performed a wonderful service over the years. But what's actually happened is they've created an environment that's now made Australia the most expensive market in the world to market a property. Yeah. In the world, Bushy, nowhere else. Like in America, and the guy we were talking to this morning in America said that the American market is envious of Australia because when you think about it, realestate.com.au and Domain have got thousands of people employed to go out and sell marketing for them so they can market their property on a platform that is attracting people who will buy the product So it's a wonderful business model. It's a fabulous business model. But what's actually happened, I hope I'm answering your question here, I'm doing it a roundabout way. But
you are.
what's actually happened here, Bushy, is that these buyers agents are now having to trawl through all of these listings. And because there's more and more buyers agents coming through, sellers agents are starting to deal with them more. In fact, there are some offices in Sydney that are now reporting 30% of their sales are coming directly from buyers agents. Directly from buyers agents.
Big number.
So these listing agents are going to buyers agents even before they put a property on a portal and giving it to them as what they call pre-market. And they will actually go and they'll do special open houses for buyers agents because buyers agents are saying, hey, I need this stock, I've got this buyer. And when you think about it, it makes sense because a buyer comes in, deals with a buyer's agent, they get pre-approved for finance. Yeah. They come in fully armed. They're a cash buyer. They're effectively all purposes. So they get everything set. So from a listing agent's point of view, they're saying to us, we'd love dealing with these buyer's agents because it makes our job so much easier. And then the buyer's agents are saying, we love dealing with the listing agents because they're giving us the first. So we said, well, hang on, we've got a disjointed market here. Buyer's agents are now bombarding listing agents saying, hey, give me your listings. Give you an example. We got on the tail end of an email out of just the Townsville market. One agency sending out their list of new properties to 150 buyers agents in like unmatched, right? So here's our new listings for this week. And then all these buyers agents, 150 of them, all competing for these listings and saying, then they've got to trawl through them all to work them out. Now, what we've effectively done is bring the two together and make a marketplace. It's a B2B marketplace. So a buyer's agent will now put a brief in, and they're very good briefs. They go into a fair amount of detail. The buyers already by that stage got their finance organised. So then that comes into our platform. Listing agents, and we've got about 2,000 of them now, I think, giving us listings. So we take the listing, we then do an AI buyer match, which is all fully automated. We say, well, this property suits that buyer, and we then send an alert to the buyer's agent. So, we're making it easier for them to find the property, and we're starting to bring the two together. So, and we're getting a great reaction to that, I've got to tell you, from both sides, listing agents and buying agents, because we've created a marketplace that actually works for them. So, that's the future of real estate. That is the future. Like, there will always be REA and domain. They could be wrong. We're not out to replace them at all. Yeah. All we're doing is because right now, I think the size of the buyer agent market in Australia, I said to you 30%, that's at the top end. That's right at the top end, the number of transactions. Right now, we estimate it's around about 2 to 5% of all sales in Australia are coming through buyers agents. And that's growing astronomically, rapidly. So, our marketplace is actually quite unique. And when you think about it, it's probably not something that REA will want to do because they need the traffic. They need to attract the buyers. Yeah. They need to get the traffic to reinforce their advertising strategies. And when you look at it, to get a property onto the marketplace can be as little as maybe a couple of $100 compared to $5,000, $6,000, even $10,000, which is what it's costing now. So, pretty excited about the future. Realty Talk will continue. Realty Talk's an important part. That talks to the consumer. We've got Realty Uncut, which is talking to the professional buyers agents and listing agents. So, the future is pretty rosy, and we look forward to continuing to work with you, Bushy, to, keep that all moving forward.
Absolutely. Well, I'm very excited about what you're sharing. I think that the benefits to all with what you're talking about there and removing some of the very obvious and expensive hurdles that are currently put in play that separate the seller from the buyer, but then facilitating that through a professional link where you've got a selling agent and a buyer's agent that are able to match each other very quickly with the AI that you bring together, that speeds up the process, that activates that matching far easier than the hours that need to be spent scrolling through the rest and then having the chats. I think that's revolutionary in the space, and the benefits to all and sundry in that exercise.
Yeah, I think some people will ask the question as they do now and say, well, how does that differ from me putting in an alert in realestate.com.au? Yeah, well, that's, yes, you can do that. Of course, you will get an alert, but it'll be an alert that will probably happen a day after it's listed. It certainly won't be pre-portal. It won't be, you're not getting ahead of the game. And it's not in their best interest to do that. So, plus the fact, the alerts that we send out are to buyers agents based on a lot of really good tech around AI. So, like for instance, to give you an example, you might be looking for a house near a golf course. You can put in a house near a golf course or house with room for a pool. If your search on realestate.com.au has to specifically have those words in the description from the real estate agent for it to be flagged. Whereas our AI search technology, I forget the word for it anyway, it describes how it works, but it doesn't work on exact words. It works on inferences, and the AI learns that, and it's learning it very quickly, so it'll spin up more opportunities.
Yeah, it's a very exciting world that we're moving into. I really want to thank you for taking the time to share what the exciting future looks like. But more importantly, Kevin, I just want to take this opportunity to thank you for all the enormous work that you've done in pioneering the property content space and for continuing to educate and inspire us all on all things property. And from a personal perspective, again, I wouldn't be where I am today if it wasn't for your support, guidance, and mentorship, and friendship too. By the way, mate.
Yeah, it's very important to me. Yeah,
it's been an absolutely awesome journey. I've loved what we've created with Property Hub. It creates a vehicle that is going to be able to change and evolve as the conditions change. So the ongoing Get Invested exercise will continue. That Realty Talk, when it's appropriate and how it's appropriate. We'll continue to do that. So, look, I just want to, I've been looking forward to this conversation for a long time. I really appreciate you being prepared to share not only what's happened in the past, but more importantly, what's going to happen in the future. And we look forward to the next chapter, Kevin.
Good on you, Bushy. Thanks, mate. And we'll all strength to you and the team. And I look forward to continuing to play a part in Property Hub. Just on an aside there too, I've always got to get the last word in, you know that. But with the Property Hub, it'd be great for us to actually encourage other people who do podcasts to get on to Property Hub, because it's not about you and I. It's about the sharing of knowledge. And there are some great podcasts. We've spoken to people like Veronica Morgan and, without naming too many names, people who have said, yeah, look, I'd love to have my content on the Hub. So that's the future for the Hub. It's going to bring together all those great information sources. So all power to you and the team. Bushy?
Well, that vision excites me, because the one thing that does annoy me in property is the competition between players. You and I have never had that view. And the more we can get together, share and cooperate together to collectively help those that really want to do well in property, the better off everyone's going to be, mate. So
here's a good idea, Bushy. Why don't we organise to have like a conversation like you've had, and we put together the top 6 or 10 podcasters in Australia, and let's throw in some ideas. You want to work on that, Bushy?
I'm going to make that happen.
Yeah, we got to work on that.
Let's keep the conversation going, Kevin.
Good on you, mate. All the best, and thank you.
This is Realty Talk, powered by realty.com.au.
Well, that's it. Make sure you join us for more property news each week on Realty Talk and Get Invested by subscribing to the Property Hub on all podcast players. Join the conversation on Facebook too. As I say thanks to our supporters and content partners, realty.com.au, BMT Tax Depreciation, Know Our Property Finance and Apiro Marketing. I'd like to say a special thanks to Brad Beer and the team at BMT Tax Depreciation. Brad joined us as a sponsor and a supporter almost at the very beginning of what was then Real Estate Talk. It says a lot, in my opinion, about BMT's commitment and their passion to helping property investors get the very most from their investments. And we thank them sincerely for that support over so many years. But for now, all the best.